All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Week number 12 in the NFL. We got the Sunday slate to dive into in today's video, with the exception of Sunday Night Football. That will be its own video here on the channel. But all of the other Sunday games I'm going to dive into. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays, like player prop spots that we might like within the game as well. But make sure to keep an eye down on the pinned comment to get to our final plays. All of my plays, so what I'm actually rolling with myself, will be down there for free. So make sure to keep an eye on that. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, and make sure you're commenting your favorite plays, because like I said in a lot of my videos, there's a lot of people down in the comments that are throwing out some absolute bangers. So make sure you guys do go ahead and comment your favorite plays and help out the community and interact down there. But what do you say we dive into game number 1 here? Looking at the Commanders taking on Dallas. Commanders coming off of 2 straight losses, but I think the big thing in terms of what they're coming off of is the gauntlet they've gone through, right? Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. So you say 2 straight losses, and it's like, yeah, I guess you can kind of make some excuses. And that Pittsburgh game came down to the wire, right? Dallas, on the other hand, 5 straight losses. Obviously, they're just in disarray right now. I will say at some point they're probably going to stumble into a good game or a good win or something. I don't know if it comes here against the Commanders. Like, this speaks to a Washington bounce back spot for me. The one thing I will say is 10 points is a lot. Like, it is, in my opinion. But this isn't a very good Dallas defense. And the Commanders' offense is really solid, right? In fact, if we look at how they've done this season, you can see Commanders' offense 4th most points per game, rushing yards per game, they're 6th. Coming down here to where Dallas is, it's just god-awful from a defensive perspective. Even in the last 3 games, you can see right here, they're allowing nearly 32 points per game to their opponents. So this should be a spot where the Commanders have some offensive success. So I think I would look at taking the Commanders here, but I also might consider a Commanders team total over. I could see them getting north of, 30 points in this spot. So make sure to keep an eye on the final plays to see if we do roll with something like that. But that might be how we can avoid, I guess, that 10-point number, because that is a big one. Obviously 2 possessions and whatnot, but if we can just say, hey, go score a bunch of points, we don't have to worry about covering any numbers or anything, that may be the way that we go. But we want to make sure that we get at least some decent value in there. Right now, if we do look at the Commanders team total, it is high. Like, we're almost looking at a minimum of 28 points from them, right? Yeah, 27.5, definitely high. They haven't done that in a few games, but against this Dallas defense, man, they probably should be able to do that. And then from a player prop perspective, I guess I might pivot to something like CeeDee Lamb, receptions or yards. Do I think Rush getting the ball is the best thing? No, but I do think that there's, based on some of the teams that Washington's looked good against, their secondary stats might look a little inflated. I don't think they're going to all that great against wide receivers, and CeeDee Lamb should get more attempts because I envision Dallas being down in this game, so he's obviously going to get the target. So, yeah, Washington team total over, Washington minus the points, and then a potential look at CeeDee Lamb, I guess, from a player prop perspective. All right, moving on here, we have New York Giants hosting the Tampa Bay Bucks. We just talked about Dallas being in enough tough spot. I don't know if it gets all that much worse than where New York is. Like, Daniel Jones clearly out, right? And the fact that they're going with DeVito kind of, I guess, makes me question things as well, because it's like, why not roll with Drew Lock? But nonetheless, Tommy DeVito listed as the starter here. No, Malik Neighbors, I believe, is going to play, but he is banged up. So a lot going wrong for this Giants team. On the other side for the Bucks, like, things could be looking up, right? Like, they are getting Mike Evans back potentially. He's upgraded to probable with that hamstring injury he had a few weeks ago. They are coming off of 4 straight losses, but it was Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, San Francisco. Like, at some point we have to say, yeah, that was a tough gauntlet to go through, right? Whereas New York is coming off of losing to Carolina. So, yeah, 2 teams in 2 different spots here. This number at 6, I feel like it's just not big enough. The one thing that I would say is a lot of times when teams, so I do like the Bucks minus 6. One thing I'll say is a lot of times when teams kind of go through these rough patches, or, the quarterback's out and they bring in the Tommy DeVito type thing, sometimes they can galvanize around that and they get that sort of one game of an explosion type of thing. Like we saw it when Jameis had his first start against Baltimore, right? After Watson went down, Jameis starts the next game, and they beat one of the best teams in the league as the Browns, that type of thing. So that's my only concern. But one, I guess, what I would consider in my dumb brain, the safer look, maybe Bucks team total over 23.5, over 21.5, over 22.5, whatever you can get in that range. Because then we're just saying, okay, well, this Giants defense has been good at times, not all that great at times as well. But the rush game is where the Bucs struggle, right? They have not been able to really move the ball all that well on the ground all year long, and this Giants team that the run defense is kind of how you get them. Last 3 games, allowing the 3rd most rushing yards per game. They're being rushed on the 2nd most amount of times. So yeah, if the Bucs can have success on the ground, I think Baker's good enough with the addition of getting Mike Evans back to combat the pass defense, right? But if they can have some leeway on the ground, I think that leads to a Bucs success, or a Bucs success and a win. So give me the Bucs in this spot, but their team total over, I think they can put up some points. I guess I would lean towards the total going over at 41. Do I really believe in this Giants team? Not all that much, but the Tampa Bay Bucs on the road this year, allowing more passing yards to opposing teams than anyone else out there. 321 yards per game allowed to opposing QBs on the road this year. So maybe it's a decent spot for the Giants to put up some points. So yeah, I'll look at the over. Panthers taking on the Chiefs here. Chiefs favored by 11, which obviously makes a little bit of sense. They are coming off their first loss of the year against Buffalo last time out. But this Carolina team, do we really need to talk about how bad they are? I mean, they've won 2 straight games. Well, let's clap it up for them, but it was against New Orleans and the Giants, 2 teams that you could make the argument that they're competing for being worse than them. You know what I mean? But I will say that's good for them for scoring 20 plus points in 2 straight games. That's going to help us in one of our leans in a little bit. We'll get into that. But from a spread perspective here, I don't think we have to spend too much time on it. Do I love Kansas City at -11? Not necessarily. That's a big number, right? But what I will say, we looked at the Commanders in Dallas at 10 and got there some way, shape, or form. It's almost like both sides of the spectrum are being stretched even further. You're like, I think the Panthers are worse than Dallas, no kidding, and the Chiefs are better than the Commanders, so why shouldn't we be able to lay the 11 points? I guess that's a side I'd be on, but it's more so because there's no chance that I could even get to the Panthers side, right? So it's almost a Chiefs lean by default, but from a total perspective, we're throwing a lot of team totals out to you guys already in this video, and I will say, sometimes when we see the team total with the numbers like Zach Galifianakis and that GIF, we've been pretty damn good at team totals, but this is going to be an under. Panthers, I don't see how they move the ball that well or at all against this Chiefs defense here, especially with the Chiefs coming off a loss. You know they're going to play with some intensity, right? So I like the Panthers team total under 16.5. Just don't get to 17 on us. And like I mentioned, they've scored 20 plus points in 2 straight games, I think helping us get the value at this line. If they had not done that, their team total would probably be like 14.5 or something like that. You know what I mean? So the fact that they've done that, and we can get -130 over on DraftKings right now, under 16.5, actually decent juice for 17.5 too if we want a little buffer. That might be a look. But either way, Panthers team total under is probably my move. I don't mind the idea of maybe a Chiefs team total over, but the whole thing here would be that the Chiefs don't need to go out there and crush the Panthers. You know what I mean? They just need to win the game, and I think they'll do that by defense. It doesn't seem like a spot in which they'd tack it on. Like, we're getting late in the year. We don't want guys getting injured and that type of thing. So I don't know if they'd pull away and drop 40 on them. They might, they have the capability, but I don't think the defense rests the entire game. So that's where I would go with that one there. One thing I will say, too, is obviously with the Chiefs' injury news and guys potentially coming back, it does still look like Pacheco is not going to be playing, so maybe a peek at Kareem Hunt in terms of his attempts or even just his yards, because I think the dude's going to be getting a decent amount of a workload here as they try and kill clock and whatnot. Another spot that I would consider would be his over 13.5 for his longest rush. There doesn't seem to be any reason why we wouldn't like that one. This is not a very good run defense in terms of Carolina. In fact, they're allowing the most rushing yards per game this season to both running backs specifically, as well as obviously all positions included. So I think that he should be able to burst one off there. So I'll go longest rush for him. His rush yards, I think it's like 70.5, which is kind of high, but I also don't mind his rush attempts. If he's healthy, he should, I feel, get a decent workload here. But maybe if we just say that longest rush, that could be the move, because he only needs to break one off. Doesn't matter if he has 12 attempts, 13 attempts, 14, a million attempts. If one is good enough for that longest rush of 14 yards, that would cash it. All right, real quick, guys, before we do continue with the plays, I want to talk to you about Underdog. If you have not checked it out yet, I'll have a link down below in the description and in the pinned comment. Underdog is a DFS app in which you can pick more or less on player set projections. The more you win, the more you get paid out, and they're giving you a freebie here. Matt Stafford, 0.5 total yards. He can run for it, he can pass for it. As long as he gets 1 yard, this bad boy cashes. So make sure to go ahead and check out Underdog. They have a great deposit bonus as well. Go check it out. That link is down below. All right, next one up, we're looking at the Bears taking on the Vikes here. Bears 3.5-point home dogs. That totals at 39. And this is an interesting one. Now, I don't know if I can really get to the Bears side of things. I'm trying to, and that's probably where my lean goes. I don't know if I can fully pull the trigger on that one, but this has a little bit of that Browns and Steelers vibe to it, where it's like, why are the Bears only sitting at 3.5-point dogs? You know, they're coming off of, what is it, like 4 straight losses, right? One of those to New England, and Minnesota's coming off of 3 straight wins. Now, it's not like Minnesota has beat down the door of these teams, right? They've kind of had some sloppy wins, but nonetheless, they've won 8 of their last 10 games. They've covered in, I believe it's 6 or 7 of them. Why are they only 3.5-point favorites, right? Like, are we missing something here as to why this isn't a 5.5 to 6 point spread? So yeah, I do look at the Bears and say, I guess that's the direction I go in, because that line smells a hell of a lot like a trap, right? From a total perspective, I don't see necessarily how the Bears put up a big number, yet I think they still cover this game. So it's got to be a low-scoring game, right? And we haven't really seen the best of Minnesota in terms of offense. This season, top 10 scoring team, great. Last 3 games here, so last 3 weeks, just scoring a little bit over 18 points per game, and their defense has been really good as well. So this is kind of a recipe for an under, in my opinion here. But one thing I do like, and it might be a little bit of a wild shot here, or a wild call and a long shot, Rome Odunze. I like his over 0.5 touchdowns. I don't mind his receptions either, or his receiving yards. You can even see from a touchdown perspective. Okay, Minnesota has not allowed many touchdowns on the season, right? 7th fewest. Against wide receivers, though, that thing jumps all the way up there to the bottom third of the league, allowing 1.1 touchdown receptions to wide receivers on per game, right? He only has 1 this season, but what I like is the fact that, 1, we should get a lot of passing plays out of Chicago in this spot. That's how you can try and beat Minnesota to some degree as well. But 2, the big thing is, he is clearly the second target in terms of target share, right? Red zone target share, same exact thing. He's the second target leader in terms of targets overall and red zone targets. So at a plus 375 number, that seems a little nice to me, right? And then, like I said, receiving yards, receptions, that's kind of how I like him as well. I think this could be a Dunze spot. And in fact, if we look at our dashboard here, Minnesota, right there, the greenest thing on the entire dashboard. This is defense, DVOA, defense versus position, and a 64% production uptick against wide receiver number 3s. So yeah, I like his spot. Even if he does slide into that wide receiver number 2 spot and whatnot in that role, I still do like Odunze for the value that we're getting in this spot for sure. But like I always say, keep an eye on the final plays to see what we end up ultimately rolling with. All right, Miami taking on the Patriots. This number obviously key there at 7.5. I've seen some 7s out there, so if you are on the Miami side of things, which I think that's the way I'm going, I would obviously shop around for the best number, because that's 7.5. If you've been doing this long enough, you know that can come back to bite you, right? But I do like Miami. I think that they should be far more offensively good to go in this spot than New England. Now, what I'll say about the Patriots is that since Drake May took over, they've looked okay offensively. They've been in games, they've hung around, so I guess, kudos to them, right? But Miami, with Tua back, getting healthy again, like, this is still, we just can't forget how explosive this offense is, right? They scored like 33 points against Vegas last week. I think that they could do something similar to the Patriots. I'm just not fully bought in on this Patriots defense, especially if you can take the top off like you can with Tyreek Hill. So yeah, if Gonzalez goes out there and he's able to shut him down and whatnot, sure, fine. Then this is all going to go kaput anyways. But we saw these two teams play earlier in the year, and it was a lot different of a Miami team then. A messy, gross game, right? Like 15-10. I see this one being a lot more high scoring. So give me the Dolphins in pull-away fashion, as well as a slight lean towards that over. If I'm looking at player props here, I do think that someone like Jalen Waddle, more of that over-the-middle possession receiver versus, they use Tyreek Hill in a lot of different ways, but that sort of crossing route type receiver could fare well in this spot, especially if the Patriots' game plan is to try and get to Tua and make him uncomfortable and pressure him. It's going to leave some gaps there, and I think that Waddle could be in a good spot there. So, yeah, in terms of specific numbers, we'll pull those up right now. Jalen Waddle is going to be a look for me in terms of his receiving yards as well as his reception. So receiving yards, 40.5. I don't mind that whatsoever. And then plus money, plus 112 here in terms of over 3.5 when it comes to receptions, which I do like. Last time he played the Patriots, he had 4, and in fact, I can even show you here, right? 4, 7, and 4 in his last 3 games against the Patriots. This one being this year, he had, or is his targets? 8 targets, caught 50% of them. He's usually going to catch more than that, right? This season, in terms of what he's catching versus his targets, 70% catch rate. So I like Jalen Waddle in this spot as well, and hopefully what I just showed you there makes a lot of sense as well. All right, Texans taking on the Titans here. This game screams, I'll just jump to it. This game kind of screams under to me. You have two good defenses, and honestly, like, even the Texans offense hasn't been as consistent as I would like to think, given who they have on their team and their guys, right? Getting Nico back obviously is a big deal, but to me, this is not a Tennessee defense to be overlooked, really. In this Texans defense, I think often people refer back to how good Stroud is in the offense and whatnot, and while they did score like 34 against Dallas last week, it's still not, like, that Dallas defense stinks, you know what I mean? So in this spot, I like that under 41. I think this is a hard game to score no matter how you look at it. From the Tennessee side of things, it's easy. Good Texans defense, bad Tennessee offense. But you flip it over, it's like, okay, well, the Texans do have a decent offense, but last 3 games here, ranked just 25th in terms of passing yards per game. They are 10th in rushing yards per game, only at the 16th highest frequency. So definitely getting some value out of Joe Mixon there. But to me, I don't think that you sit here and just run all over Tennessee, right? This is, in terms of DVOA rankings, this is the 8th best run defense this season. In the last 3 games, though, they have slid kind of to the middle of the pack, so I will throw that out there, but I'm trusting those DVOA rankings versus just the last 3 games of recent history. And in their last 3 games, Minnesota, Chargers, New England, Detroit, or last 3, but the list goes on and on past last 3. Minnesota, Chargers, New England, Detroit, Buffalo, like, a lot of these teams have very good run games on them, so that might be why the number's not matching the full season. But overall, give me the under in this spot. I said it a million times. I'll say it again. If I had to pick a side, it might be more of a look at the Texans, but that 7.5 is a little weird to me. So maybe I'd look at like a same game parlay of this game where it's just Texans money line, and then we're able to bump that total up a little bit and then go under, you know what I mean? So that's probably how I would take a peek at this one. But yeah, to me, this is a game in which I don't think Houston has the easiest time moving the ball offensively. Texans, and then the Titans just kind of make it difficult for them and vice versa. So I'll lean towards in under. That's going to be the main one. All right, next one up, we got the Colts taking on the Lions. Anytime the Lions are involved as of late, it's really hard to even think about going against them, right? So I won't do that here. I don't know if, and I feel like a broken record, I've said it a million times, but that 7.5 point number is a pretty key number in football if you don't know, and it's really tough to get there no matter how good the team is compared to their opponent, right? Like in terms of, getting to the window and placing. So I do lean Detroit. I do think that they're phenomenal. It's at some point they might have like a slip-up game, and maybe it's this game in Indianapolis. I don't think so. I don't know if I end up betting it myself, but yeah, Detroit minus the points is probably where I'd go here. In terms of that total, it's definitely a high number, but like what part of this Indianapolis defense tells us that Detroit can't just keep doing what they're doing? They're averaging 34 points per game over their last 3. Actually, on the season, they're averaging nearly that's like 33 point something. So if they go out there and put up 35, for example, right? Indianapolis should be able to contribute a little bit of their own. They are coming off of 2 straight 20-point games. So if they can put up 20, then yeah, I like the odds of an over. But honestly, where I would probably go before any of that, again, I think Detroit just is mucking up everything because they're so good. But in terms of a side total, everything's elevated. I'd look at Sam Laporta here over in his receiving yards. I don't mind his receptions either at plus 100, but receiving yards might be the move. Tight ends do pretty well. So Indianapolis struggling against the tight ends. And even with our dashboard, you can see a 31% production increase to opposing tight ends against Indianapolis this season. Do I like him for a touchdown as well? Honestly, yeah, you could see touchdowns to, against Indianapolis, been pretty good. He's had 3 out of his last 5 here. In terms of his red zone target share, looks pretty decent as well. I mean, you're going to get Amon-Ra obviously getting most of them, right? And Gibbs, him as well. But yeah, I think Sam Laporta could be a nice little big target here for a TD, but I definitely like his receiving yards more than anything. And you can see he's hit that in 6 of 9 games so far this year. On the road, 3 of 5. And even when he's not hitting it, he's pretty dang close, right? If he had a couple more receptions, those cash. So yeah, I think Sam Laporta might be the way that I play this one, because again, it's like the Lions being involved just kind of muddy the waters in terms of how clear we can view things, because everything's going to be, almost like a betting tax in a sense, because everything is inflated because of them. All right, moving right along to the Raiders taking on the Broncos. I'm starting to be a little bit of a believer now. If you were to rewind a few weeks ago, I didn't necessarily love this Broncos team. I thought they hadn't really played anyone. Bo Nix wasn't any good and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people were in that same boat, right? But seeing how they played against the Falcons, and I know you shouldn't just judge one game or something like that, but that really did make me think like, okay, maybe this offense has some juice behind it. We know they have a pretty damn good defense, right? So in this spot, I'm going to lean another favorite, Broncos. But I think that their defense is what obviously shines through and whatnot. So, yeah, we're going to go right back to a team total here. I like under 18.5, or actually, under 17.5. You can also get decent odds at 18.5. I don't think it'll matter all that much, in terms of like a key number in football. But minus 115 here, under 17.5 for the Raiders. I just can't see where they move the ball either on the ground or through the air against this Denver team defensively. This Denver team is stopping the run, like you read about. 78 yards allowed per game over their last 3. On the road this year, they've been great. Only 193 in terms of passing yards allowed, and then 97 rushing yards allowed. So it's like they're crushing it on the road. And when you look at Las Vegas, they definitely can't move the ball on the ground, right? The lowest in the entire league, averaging just 75.2 yards per game. Rushing yards in the last 3 games, 51, and they're also passing just over 200 yards per game. So it's like, where is this offense going to come from? I know somehow I'll eat my words and it's going to be like, well, there's the offense, right? But to me, this should be a Broncos game all the way through. And if they are going to, stomp them that much defensively, again, I like the team total under for the Raiders, but I would say that, that 6 points doesn't make me afraid all that much. I'm just, even though I'm turning into a believer of the offense, I still want to see it a little bit more before, I race to the parade type of a thing. So yeah, I think the way that we kind of hybridize that is by looking at the team total under there. When it comes to a player props spot here, I really don't mind Bo Nix over 222.5. I think that he can do fairly well out there. My one concern is that if they do get out there and start leading this game, there's no reason why they shouldn't just hand the ball off and run, right? So I think Bo Nix does kind of roll right into another good game here. But the not blowout potential, but like the game control potential here does worry me a little bit. But I do like his completions, his pass yards, his attempts, that type of thing. I think that they can definitely have some success against this Raiders defense. All right, I'm not going to lie on this one. I was all geared up to be, San Francisco underdog, blah, blah, blah. Brock Purdy ruled out now. So obviously that is a big kick in the you-know-whats for San Francisco. I think Brock Purdy's shown he's not like a system quarterback and whatnot, at least this season for sure. So that is obviously tough. It doesn't necessarily make me get all the way to the Packers, though. I still do think that there are some things that this 49ers team can do. Like, I think that they have the far better defense, and I wouldn't say the Packers defense is all that bad. I'm not saying that, but I do think that the 49ers have the far better defense. And then even from offensive, like, if you did want to say and take it and run with it that Brock Purdy's a system quarterback, well, okay, you just fill in with another quarterback in a sense. Do I think that that's the best thing? It's what, Brandon Allen is their quarterback? No, but I almost think this game is kept close via defense. So I'm only saying the system quarterback thing because that is some people have that take on Brock Purdy, right? But to me, yeah, like if I thought this was going to be defensive, I got to try and clear my brain and be like, well, you thought it was going to be defensive. Brock Purdy wasn't the reason you liked San Francisco in the first place. Stick to it. Now you're just getting a better number. If I had hammered this early, I'd be like, oh my God, that stinks, right? Because you had like a +1, now it's +5.5. That would suck. But, getting this number now, maybe even being able to buy it up to like 6.5 or 6 or something like that to keep it within that touchdown, but still underneath the extra point. Maybe that's the direction I'd go. But I will say, if someone is on the Packers, I totally understand it. Like, I understood it when Brock Purdy was in. You know what I mean? So now that he's out, I can still get it. I just think that if this game does come back down in terms of points and to defense, then yeah, I think it's 49ers all the way. So give me them plus the points, and then obviously based on what I'm saying, I don't necessarily mind the under. And I think that George Kittle could have a decent role in this one. When you think about it, all of these guys like Debo, like Juwan Jennings, like I want to say, McCaffrey's going to be 100%. We don't necessarily know that yet, right? But any of these guys are more shifty and skill-wise, right? But coming in with Brandon Allen at quarterback, he's going to be looking for a safety blanket, a safe guy, and George Kittle just running those typical dig routes over the middle are the easy reads, are the easy looks. I think that Kittle gets a few more targets and looks just due to the fact that a backup quarterback is in. Again, Debo and Christian McCaffrey, they'll run some designed plays for them and whatnot. Juwan Jennings down the field. But in terms of safe plays and in terms of where I think that the quarterback's going to look in terms of not wanting to make a mistake early on in the game, whatnot, I think George Kittle over 3.5 receptions and over his yards too. I want to say his receiving yards is, receiving yards 39.5. Yeah, I like that as well. I also don't mind his touchdown plus 310. So I think I'm talking myself even more and more into Kittle as we go here. But guys, before we do get to the end of the video here, we do have some more, another game to talk about. But go ahead and comment 25, letting me know that you made it this far into the video. I do truly appreciate it. Like I said, we have one more game to talk about, but before we get into that, comment 25. Make sure you're hitting that like button and subscribing as well. Truly, truly do appreciate it. I don't take any of this for granted, and I want to make that abundantly clear as we progress here and as we keep going. So thank you guys so much, but let's get to that last game now. Comment 25 if you've made it this far. All right, Seahawks taking on the Cardinals here. One thing to note, I do believe we're going to have some bad weather in this one, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously something that Seattle's going to be more comfortable with at home than Arizona, right? So obviously that's worth noting. But what I will say is even if it comes down to that sort of sloppy, messy game, I think Arizona's going to be in a better position there. Now, they haven't really played the hardest of schedules lately or just overall. Seattle has kind of gone through it, San Francisco, Atlanta, Buffalo, Rams, and then San Francisco again. So they've looked really bad. I think Detroit was in there too recently in that Thursday night or Monday night, whatever it was. But they've looked pretty bad. But at the same time, they haven't had the easiest of gauntlets to go through, right, as if such things exist. So I do think that we're overreacting to where Seattle is as of right now. But I still like the idea of the ability to pound the rock and whatnot on the Arizona side of things should this game get a little messy and sloppy. So yeah, I'll take the underdog. Probably just look at them on the money line if I were to roll with this, right? I mean, what's the point of that 1 point? If and I guess you have push potential, but if we can get even odds for Arizona, that's where I'll go. And then total wise, yeah, I'll look at the under. I think this game's going to be played on the ground. Seattle's going to try and give it to Kenneth Walker. Arizona's going to give it to James Conner, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be played on the ground, and that weather does not hurt that take at all either, right? Player prop though, I would look at James Conner to score a touchdown. He's going to get the bulk of the workload in the red zone. So in terms of red zone attempts, he has 70% of the carries. The only one behind him is Kyler Murray. So he's getting all of those carries in the red zone, and rightfully so, right? And then on the other side of things, I don't mind Kenneth Walker to score a touchdown either. I think you can get decent odds that for him. Minus 130. Seems valuable. I mean, he's going to get plenty of the carries as well. And this season, he's been hitting this at a fairly normal number, right? 5 of 8 games. He's coming off of one against San Francisco. You look at the red zone rush attempts for him. Yes, Zach Charbonnet has a few, but he has nearly 60% of the red zone rushes. So, yeah, I think I like both running backs in a wet game for the both teams to be like, yeah, we don't want to mess around or get cute on the goal line. Let's pound it in. Give me both running backs to score a touchdown. Maybe even a little bit of a parlay, question mark, huh? But guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. Do appreciate it. I know I just took the time to say it, but the more I say it, I just hope I mean it even more. I do appreciate the spot that I'm in and the fact that the new channel has grown so much. You guys have supported, so thank you guys very, very much. I'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.